The rain poured down heavily on the alien forest, creating a symphony of water droplets hitting strange, glowing plants. Alex tightened his jacket, his breath visible in the chilly air. His shuttle had malfunctioned, forcing him to make an emergency landing on this uncharted planet. The storm showed no signs of stopping, and with nightfall approaching, he needed to find shelter fast. As he trudged through the thick, mossy terrain, he spotted a faint glow in the distance. A house. Relief washed over him, but it was quickly replaced by unease. Who, or what, lived there? It was rare for humans to encounter friendly aliens this far out in the galaxy. Cautiously, Alex approached the structure. The house was unlike anything he'd seen before, with walls that seemed to pulse softly, as though alive. Its design was both organic and metallic, blending seamlessly with the surrounding forest. He hesitated at the door, his hand hovering over the peculiar-looking doorbell. Before he could press it, the door creaked open on its own. Standing in the doorway was an alien woman. She was tall and slender, her skin shimmering faintly like moonlight on water. Her eyes glowed a soft blue, staring at Alex with an intensity that made him freeze. She wore a robe-like garment that shifted colors as she moved, almost as if it were alive. "What are you doing here, human?" she asked, her voice calm but laced with suspicion. Alex cleared his throat, feeling the weight of her gaze. I need shelter. My shuttle broke down, and the storm." Before he could finish, she cut him off. "Do you dare to stay in my house, human?" Her tone was sharp, almost a challenge. "Do you understand the risk you take?" Alex hesitated. Her words sent a chill down his spine, but he had little choice. The storm outside was growing fiercer, and he couldn't survive the night in the open. "If you'll let me, I'll stay," he said, trying to sound braver than he felt. The alien woman's glowing eyes narrowed as if she were sizing him up. After a moment, she stepped aside, gesturing for him to enter. "Very well, but you must follow my rules. Disobey them, and you will regret it." Alex stepped inside, immediately struck by the house's interior. It was otherworldly, with walls that seemed to shift and shimmer, reflecting a light that came from nowhere. Strange artifacts adorned shelves, their purposes a mystery to him. The air was warm, but carried an odd hum, like a low vibration that made his skin tingle. The door closed behind him with a soft thud, sealing him in. The woman turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "My name is Kalara. Remember it well, human. You are a guest here, but this house is no ordinary place. If you value your life, do not wander where you are not welcome." Alex nodded, his curiosity growing despite her ominous warning. He had no idea what he just walked into, but one thing was clear: this would be no ordinary night. As Alex followed Kalara into this strange house, the hum in the air grew stronger, almost as if the building was alive. He glanced around, trying to make sense of his surroundings. The walls weren't made of wood or metal, but a material that seemed to shift between solid and liquid, glowing faintly in shades of green and blue. Every step he took made the floor ripple slightly, as though it were responding to his presence. Kalara stopped abruptly and turned to face him. "Listen carefully, human," she said, her glowing eyes narrowing. "This house is not like the ones you're used to. It is bound to me, and it reacts to intruders. If you step where you shouldn't or touch what you don't understand, it will not hesitate to defend itself." Alex nodded, swallowing hard. He couldn't tell if she was being serious or trying to scare him, but something about the way the house seemed to pulse made him believe her. "Got it. I'll stick to where you say." She led him down a short hallway into a sitting area. The furniture looked like it had grown out of the floor, smooth, organic shapes that fit the space perfectly. Kalara gestured for him to sit on a low, rounded seat that adjusted itself as he settled into it. It felt warm, almost alive. "Why did you let me in?" Alex asked, his curiosity getting the better of him. "You didn't have to. I could have found another place." Kalara's expression remained unreadable. "I did not let you in out of kindness. Human. This planet is dangerous at night, and if you had died near my home, your kind would come looking for you. That would have been inconvenient. Alex raised an eyebrow, but decided not to push the matter. He had a feeling there was more to her answer than she was letting on. Fair enough. So, what's the deal with this house? It doesn't exactly feel normal. Kalara hesitated, as if deciding how much to tell him. Finally, she said, "This house is a relic of my people. It was grown, not built, using a blend of technology and biology. It is both a sanctuary and a guardian. It has kept me safe for many years." Her words hinted at loneliness, though her tone was firm. Alex wanted to ask more, but she cut him off with a sharp glance. "You may stay in the guest chamber. It will prepare itself for you. But remember this, do not wander at night. There are places in this house where even I do not tread." The warning sent a chill down Alex's spine. "Why not?" he asked carefully. Kalara's expression darkened. "Because this house remembers. It holds the echoes of the past, and some memories are better left undisturbed." The hum in the walls grew louder, as if the house agreed with her words. Alex nodded, trying to suppress his growing unease. "Understood. I'll stay in my room." But as Kalara walked away, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the house was watching him, waiting for him to make a mistake. The guest chamber was unlike anything Alex had ever seen. The walls glowed with a soft, pulsing light that adjusted as he entered, as though the room itself was aware of his presence. A bed-like structure emerged seamlessly from the floor, molding itself to his size and shape. The air was warm, carrying a faint floral scent that seemed designed to relax him. Despite the comfort, Alex couldn't shake the unease Kalara's warnings had planted in his mind. Her cryptic words echoed in his head. "This house remembers." He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the door Kalara had closed behind him. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the occasional hum from the walls. It was as if the house was alive, breathing softly around him. Determined to shake off his nerves, Alex pulled a small device from his pocket, a portable scanner he always carried for emergencies. He aimed it at the wall, curious about the strange material. The scanner buzzed and blinked, struggling to process the data. Unstable organic compounds, unknown energy signatures. Alex muttered, reading the display. The scanner suddenly overheated in his hand, sparking before shutting down. Startled, he dropped it to the floor. The hum in the room grew louder, almost like a low growl. Alex froze, his instincts screaming at him to stay still. The walls rippled slightly, as though responding to his actions. For a moment, he thought the room might close in on him. "I didn't mean to," Alex started to say, but the hum abruptly subsided, returning to its earlier, gentle rhythm. Whatever had happened, the house seemed to have forgiven him. For now. The next morning, Alex found Kalara in the sitting area, tending to a plant-like structure that seemed to grow directly out of the floor. She glanced at him as he entered, her glowing eyes narrowing slightly. "You survived the night," she remarked, her tone neutral. "Barely," Alex replied, his voice tinged with humor. "Your house doesn't seem to like me very much." Kalara's lips curved into what might have been a smirk. "It doesn't trust you. The house is alive in its own way, attuned to me and wary of intruders." Alex hesitated before asking, "And why doesn't it trust me? I haven't done anything." Kalara straightened, her expression unreadable. "It senses your curiosity. Humans always seek to understand, to explore. That can be dangerous here." Alex crossed his arms, leaning against the strange, fluid-like wall. "Maybe curiosity isn't such a bad thing. It's gotten me this far." Kalara tilted her head, studying him. "Perhaps, but in this house, curiosity can awaken things better left forgotten." Her words hung in the air like a warning, but Alex couldn't let go of his questions. What was this house truly hiding? And what secrets did Kalara herself hold? As the day passed, Their uneasy coexistence continued. Kaylara avoided sharing too much, and Alex knew better than to push her. But the house, its hums, its whispers, seemed to invite him to discover what lay beneath the surface, and he wasn't sure how much longer he could resist. The day passed slowly in Kaylara's strange house, each moment filled with a sense of tension Alex couldn't shake. He tried to keep himself occupied, tinkering with a small communicator from his emergency kit, but his thoughts kept drifting to the basement. Kaylara had warned him to stay away, yet it felt like the house itself was calling to him. Every so often, Alex caught himself glancing toward the heavy, sealed door at the far end of the hallway. It was unlike the other doors in the house, where the rest of the structure seemed organic and alive. This door was cold, metallic, and utterly silent. It didn't ripple or hum like the walls. Instead, it stood still, imposing, and out of place. As night fell, Alex decided to ask Kaylara about it. He found her in the sitting area again, this time studying a glowing crystal embedded in a strange device. The faint blue light reflected off her face, giving her an otherworldly appearance. Kaylara, Alex began cautiously. That door in the hallway. What's behind it? Her eyes snapped up to meet his, and for the first time, he saw something resembling fear in her expression. "I told you not to ask about that," she said sharply. "It's none of your concern." "But it feels different," Alex pressed. "The whole house hums and shifts, but that door doesn't. It's like it doesn't belong here." Kaylara stood, her expression hardening. "That door is sealed for a reason, human. The memories behind it are dangerous. They are not meant for you, or anyone." Alex frowned, frustrated by her secrecy. "You keep talking about memories, but what does that even mean? Are you saying this house has a mind of its own?" Kaylara hesitated, as if weighing how much to reveal. Finally, she said, "The house was designed by my people to be a sanctuary. But it is more than a structure. It's a living archive. It absorbs and preserves the energy of everything that happens within it." Alex stared at her, processing her words. "So it remembers the past. And what's behind that door? It's something the house remembers." Kaylara's jaw tightened. "Yes. And it's something that should never be disturbed." Before Alex could ask more, a loud, echoing thud reverberated through the house. The sound came from the basement door. Alex's eyes widened, and he instinctively looked toward the hallway. "What was that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Kaylara's face paled, and she moved toward the door. "The house is restless tonight," she muttered. "Stay here, Alex." But as she walked away, Alex couldn't help but follow at a distance. He watched as Kaylara stood in front of the basement door, her hand resting on its surface. For a moment, the hum of the house grew louder, almost like a warning. Kaylara turned back, her expression grim. "If you value your life, do not come near this door again." She walked away, leaving Alex standing there, staring at the door that seemed to whisper his name. Something was down there, and Alex knew he wouldn't be able to ignore it for much longer. The night was eerily quiet, the usual hum of the house muted as if it was holding its breath. Alex lay on the bed in the guest chamber, unable to sleep. Kaylara's warning replayed in his mind, but so did the faint thud he'd heard earlier. The basement door had seemed so ordinary, yet it carried an undeniable weight, like a secret begging to be uncovered. Suddenly, a low, rhythmic vibration rippled through the room, pulling Alex from his thoughts. It wasn't like the gentle hum of the house. This felt deeper, almost alive. He sat up, his heart pounding. The vibration wasn't coming from the walls or the floor. It was coming from below. Against his better judgment, Alex got out of bed and crept toward the hallway. The air felt heavier, charged with energy. As he approached the basement door, the vibrations grew stronger, accompanied by faint, otherworldly whispers. The door, once still and lifeless, now pulsed with a faint glow. Alex hesitated. Kaylara's warnings had been clear, but his curiosity burned brighter. He reached out, his hand hovering over the door's cold surface. Just as his fingers brushed it, a sharp voice startled him. "What are you doing?" Kaylara stood at the end of the hallway, her eyes blazing with anger and fear. "I heard something," Alex said, stepping back from the door. "The house, it's different tonight. Something's happening, isn't it?" Kaylara marched toward him, her expression a mixture of fury and desperation. "I told you to stay away from this door. You don't understand what you're dealing with." "Then explain it to me," Alex shot back. "You can't just keep me in the dark while this thing is clearly reacting to something." Kaylara stared at him for a long moment, her jaw clenched. Finally, she sighed, the fight draining from her posture. "The rift is waking up," she admitted. "It happens sometimes, especially when someone stirs the house's memories. That's why I warned you." "What is the rift?" Alex asked, his voice steady despite the growing tension. Kaylara glanced at the glowing door, her expression grim. "It's a tear between dimensions, a mistake created by my people long ago. The house was built to contain it, but it's not perfect. If the rift opens fully, it could destroy not just this planet, but everything nearby." Alex's blood ran cold. "And you're just living here, guarding this thing alone." "I have no choice," Kaylara said quietly. "This is my burden." Another thud came from the door, louder this time. The glow intensified, and the whispers grew clearer, almost like voices trying to speak. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. "We need to do something," he said. "If this rift is waking up, we can't just ignore it." Kaylara shook her head. "There's nothing you can do, human. This is beyond you." "Maybe," Alex said, his jaw tightening, "but I'm not going to stand by and let it destroy everything. Let me help." Kaylara looked at him, her glowing eyes filled with doubt. For the first time, she seemed unsure. "You're a fool," she muttered, "but perhaps a fool is exactly what we need." As the rift's presence grew stronger, Alex knew they were running out of time. Whatever lay beyond that door, he was determined to face it, no matter the cost. The basement door loomed before Alex, its glow pulsating like a heartbeat. The whispers had grown louder, distinct now, as though calling his name. Kaylara stood beside him, her expression unreadable, but her body tense. The hum of the house, usually soft and rhythmic, had turned into a low, menacing vibration that seemed to rattle his very bones. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Kaylara asked, her voice low. "Once the door opens, there's no turning back." Alex clenched his fists, trying to steady his nerves. "We can't just ignore it. If this rift is as dangerous as you say, it's better we face it now." Kaylara hesitated, then placed her hand on the door. Her glowing eyes flickered with a mixture of fear and resolve. "Stay close to me. The rift's energy can affect your mind. If you lose focus, you'll become one of its memories." Alex frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means you'll cease to exist," she said bluntly. "You'll become a part of the rift's endless cycle of chaos." Her words sent a shiver through Alex, but he nodded. "Got it. Let's do this." Kaylara pressed her hand against the door, and it slowly slid open with a deep, echoing groan. A wave of cold air rushed out, carrying with it a chorus of ghostly whispers. Alex felt an unnatural chill seep into his skin, as though the air itself were alive. The basement was unlike the rest of the house. Where the upper floors had a fluid, organic feel, the basement was raw and jagged, as if the house had grown around a wound. In the center of the room, a swirling vortex of light and shadow hovered, pulsating with energy. The rift. Alex stared at it, equal parts mesmerized and terrified. The vortex seemed to stretch infinitely inward, a chaotic swirl of colors and shapes that defied logic. Faint images flickered within, scenes of alien worlds, strange creatures, and what looked like fragments of Kaylara's past. "What is it showing?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The rift feeds on memories. Kalara replied, her voice tight. It pulls them from anyone nearby, twisting them into something unrecognizable. That's why you need to stay focused. As Alex stepped closer, the whispers intensified, pressing against his mind like an invisible weight. Images of his own past began to surface. His family, his friends, the crash that had stranded him here. He shook his head, trying to push the visions away. Focus, human, Kalara snapped, grabbing his arm. Her touch was firm, grounding him. The rift senses weakness. Don't give it anything to latch onto. What do we do? Alex asked, his voice strained. We can't just leave it like this. Kalara's glowing eyes fixed on the rift, determination hardening her features. We stabilize it. There's a control panel in the chamber, but it's dangerous. If we make even one mistake, the rift could expand. I'll help, Alex said firmly. Just tell me what to do. Kalara hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Fine. But remember, one wrong move, and we might not survive this. As they approached the rift, Alex could feel its chaotic energy clawing at his mind. Despite the fear gripping him, he steeled himself. They had no choice but to face the danger together and hope they could outsmart the chaos waiting within. Kalara moved swiftly, her glowing eyes focused on the control panel near the swirling rift. The room around them seemed to pulse with a life of its own, the walls vibrating in rhythm with the energy of the rift. Alex felt the ground shift beneath his feet, as though the very house was reacting to the disturbance below. He glanced at Kalara, her expression tense. She was doing everything she could to stay calm, but even she couldn't hide the flicker of fear in her eyes. The rift was growing, its swirling center pulling at the fabric of the room, distorting reality itself. The whispers had grown louder, louder than ever, and now they weren't just whispers. They were screams, the sounds of countless voices, all crying out in pain, anguish, and rage. Focus, Alex, Kalara said, her voice low but sharp. We need to get to the panel before it's too late. Alex nodded, his heart pounding. The closer they got to the rift, the more disorienting it became. Strange flashes of light seemed to shoot from the vortex, distorting the air around them. As he stepped forward, the air grew colder and the whispers became clearer, almost as if they were speaking directly to him. He tried to ignore them, but a cold chill crept into his bones. You don't belong here, human. The voice was soft, almost kind, but it sent a wave of dread over him. He clenched his fists, pushing the voice away. He couldn't let it distract him. The rift was the enemy, not these whispers. Kalara reached the control panel, her fingers flying over it, pulling up holographic displays. The glowing symbols were foreign to Alex, but he could see the urgency in her movements. It's too unstable, she muttered under her breath. The energy here is far stronger than I anticipated. It's feeding off of our presence. Alex stepped beside her, trying to help, though he had no idea what to do. What do we need to do to stop it? Kalara didn't look at him. I need to recalibrate the energy fields around the rift. If I can stabilize them, it will shrink back into its original form. But I'll need a power boost, something I can't do alone. Without thinking, Alex reached for his emergency kit. I can help. I've got some equipment, tools that might work. Kalara's eyes flicked to him, doubt clouding her expression. Your tools are primitive. They won't be enough. But Alex was already at the panel, pulling out a small device. He had no idea if it would work, but in the chaos, there wasn't much time for second thoughts. He connected it to one of the exposed ports on the panel. The device hummed to life, sending a faint pulse of energy through the room. For a moment, nothing happened. The rift continued to swirl, its energy growing stronger, and the whispers grew more intense. The room seemed to tilt, like it was going to collapse inward. Alex braced himself, but then, suddenly, the device sent a stronger pulse. The rift flickered, and for an instant, it shrank, its violent energy pulling back just slightly. The pressure in the room lightened, the whispers quieted. Kaylara's eyes widened in surprise. But she didn't waste time. She pressed her hands to the control panel, channeling the recalibrated energy into the rift. "We're not done yet," she said, her voice tight with concentration. "This is just the beginning. Stay focused." Alex felt a surge of determination. He had no idea if they were out of danger, but for the first time, he thought maybe, just maybe, they had a chance of stopping the rift from swallowing everything. The air crackled with energy as Kaylara continued to manipulate the control panel, her hands moving rapidly over the glowing symbols. The rift was still there, swirling violently, but it had shrunk, just a little. Alex could feel the house trembling beneath his feet, as though it was holding its breath. The whispers had quieted, but the oppressive hum of power still filled the room, pushing against his mind. Kaylara's face was tense, her eyes narrowed in concentration. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and for the first time, Alex saw how fragile she truly was. She had always appeared strong, unshakable, but now he could see the toll the rift was taking on her. Her body seemed to flicker with energy, like she was being stretched to her limits. "We need more power," she said between clenched teeth. "The rift is too strong. Even with your device, I can't stabilize it fully without draining the house's core. It's risky, but it's the only way." Alex didn't hesitate. "What do we need to do?" Kaylara glanced at him, her eyes filled with reluctant trust. "You have to help me draw power from the house itself. We need to channel it into the rift, force it back. But the process is dangerous. You could be pulled in." He didn't even blink. "I'm ready. Tell me what to do." Kaylara nodded, a flicker of gratitude in her eyes. "Stay close. We'll have to use the control panel to focus the energy. But the rift will fight back. It will try to pull us into its chaos. You need to keep your mind clear. Don't let it distract you." Alex steeled himself, moving beside her. The rift in front of them pulsed with unnatural force, its colors flashing in a chaotic dance of light and shadow. The vortex stretched and contracted, as if it were alive, trying to break free. Each time it expanded, Alex felt his heart race, the pull of the rift growing stronger. Kaylara's hands began to glow with energy, her fingers tracing the symbols on the panel. As she worked, Alex could feel the house shift, like it was responding to her commands. The walls hummed louder, vibrating with raw power. He placed his hand on the panel beside hers, trying to steady himself against the growing force. The rift seemed to sense their intentions. A deep, throbbing sound filled the room, and the vortex lashed out violently, sending waves of energy crashing against them. Alex staggered back, his mind reeling from the force. The whispers were back, louder now, full of anger and desperation. "You can't control me," the rift seemed to say, its voice filling Alex's head, drowning out everything else. "I will consume you, all of you." Alex gritted his teeth, forcing the voice from his mind. He focused on Kaylara, on the task at hand. "We can do this," he muttered to himself. "We can control it." With a sharp cry, Kaylara slammed her hand down on the panel, sending a massive burst of energy into the rift. The vortex shrieked, its colors flashing wildly. The house shook violently, and for a moment, Alex thought it might collapse. But Kaylara didn't stop. She continued to pour energy into the rift, the light from her hands almost blinding. Alex took a deep breath, following her lead. He closed his eyes and forced his mind to focus. They had to work together. They had to fight the rift and stop it from destroying everything. As they continued the battle, the rift seemed to lose its power. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, it began to shrink. The violent pulses became less intense. The swirling vortex began to settle, a chaos retreating. The room grew quiet. The house's hum softened, and for the first time, Alex felt the weight of the danger lift. He opened his eyes and saw that the rift was now a small, swirling orb of light, contained within the control panel. Kaylura let out a shaky breath and collapsed against the wall, her energy spent. Alex, equally drained, knelt beside her. "We did it," he said, though his voice sounded far too tired for such a simple statement. Kaylura nodded weakly. "Yes, but only for now. The rift is sealed, but it's not gone forever. It will return." Alex sat back on his heels, trying to catch his breath. "Then we'll be ready." The two of them sat in silence, the echoes of their victory still ringing in the air. They had faced the rift and survived. But Alex knew their journey was far from over. The rift would return, and when it did, they would have to be ready to fight again. The quiet after the battle was almost unbearable. The rift, though contained, still pulsed faintly in the control panel, a reminder that their victory was temporary. Kaylura slumped against the wall, her body visibly drained from the energy she had used to keep the rift under control. Alex, equally exhausted, tried to steady himself, his mind struggling to grasp the full extent of what had just happened. Kaylura's breathing was shallow, and her skin, once glowing with power, now looked pale and fragile. She turned to Alex, her glowing eyes dimming. "It's not over," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "The rift will come back. We only delayed it." Alex's heart sank at her words. He had hoped that their actions had permanently stopped the rift, but Kaylura's expression told him otherwise. There was still so much more to be done. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice thick with fatigue. Kaylura looked at him, her eyes filled with something that almost resembled sorrow. "I'm the only one who can truly seal the rift, but it's a sacrifice I can't avoid." Her voice wavered as she spoke. "I will have to draw the rift's energy into myself. It will drain me, and there will be no coming back." Alex blinked, confusion flooding his mind. "What do you mean? You can't do that. There has to be another way." She shook her head slowly, her movements heavy. "I'm the last of my kind, Alex. I've spent years guarding this rift, keeping it from consuming everything. But every time I keep it sealed, it takes more from me. The rift feeds off my energy. The only way to stop it for good is for me to take it into myself, to draw its power away." Her voice grew soft, almost distant. "This has always been my fate. I knew it from the moment I was chosen to guard this place." Alex's heart raced as he tried to understand what she was saying. "But you'll die," he said, his voice filled with disbelief. "I will," Kaylura confirmed, her eyes closing for a moment, as though she were already resigned to her fate. "But it will be the only way to protect this world, and everyone on it." Alex shook his head, refusing to accept what she was saying. "No, there has to be another way. You can't." But Kaylura reached out and touched his arm gently. Her touch was surprisingly warm, despite her weakened state. "You've done enough, human. You've helped me in ways I never thought possible. I wish I could ask for more. But this is the only way." The house around them seemed to hum, the walls vibrating as though they, too, understood the weight of what was happening. The rift pulsed faintly, as if it were waiting, eager to reclaim what it had lost. Alex felt a surge of emotion rise within him. Anger, helplessness, and a deep sense of loss. He couldn't just let her go, not like this. But he knew, deep down, that Kaylura was right. This was her burden, her responsibility, and it was something she had accepted long ago. "If you do this, what happens to you?" Alex asked, his voice thick with emotion. Kaylura smiled weakly. "I will fade, but at least the rift will be gone. The peace you sought when you came to this world will remain. That's the only thing that matters." Alex didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to stop her, and he didn't know how to make her understand how much he cared. All he could do was stand there, feeling helpless, as Kaylura prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice. The rift would finally be sealed, but at what cost? Kaylura closed her eyes, her breathing slowing as she prepared herself. The house seemed to hold its breath along with her. Alex could only watch, feeling the weight of the moment crash down on him. Kalara stood in front of the rift, her body trembling with exhaustion. The faint glow that had once surrounded her seemed to fade, leaving her looking fragile and vulnerable. Alex stood by her side, his heart heavy, knowing that the moment was upon them. "I'm ready," Kalara said softly, her voice steady despite the pain she was clearly feeling. Her glowing eyes locked with his for one last time. "This is the only way to make sure the rift is gone for good." Alex wanted to say more, to protest, but words seemed useless. He knew there was no other option. The rift had to be sealed, and Kalara had accepted that it was her destiny to end it. He had seen her strength, her courage, and now he could only stand by her side and watch her fulfill the promise she had made to herself long ago. "You've already done more than anyone could have expected," Kalara continued, her voice soft but filled with a quiet determination. "You helped me when no one else could. You showed me that even in the darkest moments, there is hope." Alex swallowed hard, trying to steady his breath. "I wish there was something more I could do for you." Kalara smiled faintly. "Just stay with me for this. That's enough." With a deep breath, Kalara extended her arms toward the rift, the glowing light from the vortex swirling around her. Alex watched as she stepped forward, her body glowing once again with energy. The rift seemed to react to her presence, its chaotic energy lashing out, trying to pull her in. But Kalara stood firm, her expression unwavering. The air around them crackled with power, and Alex could feel the immense energy building up in the room. The rift seemed to grow larger, more unstable, as it tried to resist Kalara's efforts. Her hands trembled as she reached out to take control of the energy, drawing it toward her. It was clear the rift was fighting back, desperate to stay alive. But Kalara's will was stronger. Slowly, the rift began to shrink, the swirling chaos calming, its energy siphoning into her. The room grew quieter, the air less tense. Alex could see the strain on Kalara's face as she channeled the rift's energy into herself. Her body glowed brighter and brighter, almost blinding him. Alex took a step closer, unable to tear his eyes away. He couldn't help but feel that the rift was trying to take everything from her, to consume her very soul. But Kalara fought back, and the rift was slowly, finally, losing its power. "You're doing it," Alex whispered, his voice filled with awe. "You're saving us all." Kalara's eyes flickered, a soft smile touching her lips. "You were the one who helped me see that I wasn't alone." That made all the difference. With one final surge of energy, the rift collapsed entirely, its chaotic energy now completely absorbed by Kalara. The room went silent, the danger finally gone. Kalara fell to her knees, her glowing body now dimming. Alex rushed to her side, his heart racing with fear. "Kalara," he whispered, gently lifting her head. She smiled weakly, her voice soft, but filled with peace. "It's done. The rift is gone, Alex. It's over now." Tears welled in Alex's eyes, but he held her hand, knowing that even though she had sacrificed so much, Kalara had given everything to protect the world. And him. Kalara's energy faded, but her presence remained, like a gentle, guiding light. As her final breath left her, Alex whispered, "Thank you." With the rift sealed and Kalara's sacrifice behind them, Alex knew that he would never forget her. Her bravery, her strength, and her kindness would live on in his heart forever. Though the rift was gone, the lessons it had taught him would stay with him for the rest of his life. As the house grew still around him, Alex stood, looking at the now peaceful space where Kalara had stood. The world was safe, and he had witnessed something extraordinary, a sacrifice that would echo through the ages. And for the first time since his crash on this strange planet, Alex felt that he wasn't alone.